As I take a more panoramic look at the aftermath to the incident in Charlottesville and President Trump's response to it and America's response to it, I've come to the conclusion that David Carroll was right when he said that the Negro does not want solutions. And as I take a full panoramic look at all of America, regardless of race, I can honestly say the entire country does not want solutions. And looking at the behavior that everyone participated in regarding this whole incident in Charlottesville shows me clearly how no one wants solutions regarding the race issue here in America. When it comes down to the race issue here in America, people don't want solutions. All they want you to do is stop talking about the problem. So they do things to shut people up. And one of the things that was done to shut people up was that whole counter protest from Antifa. They did not want to deal with the issue of race in a constructive manner, so they went out here looking to argue with these white supremacists. And then we had the Democrats and Republicans pulling away from President Trump, and what they did was, again, not looking to create solutions, looking to stop talking about the problem. And how they deflected from talking about the problem was saying, we must denounce white supremacy. And if you listen to that argument on the words that they said, it would seem like a very noble gesture. However, it was a disingenuous statement meant to keep people from talking about the problem and focusing on solutions, because the reason why they didn't want to talk about white supremacy is because they did not want to unearth the skeletons in their closet regarding the whole situation. So they didn't want to talk about the problem, and they wanted everyone to denounce white supremacy so they could get back to business as usual. Unfortunately, President Trump doubled down, and that really started making people upset. And it made people so upset that they were going out of their way to censor white supremacists online by taking away their web pages on many servers, and even companies like YouTube and Google going out of their way to demonetize any sort of content that they believed would be considered offensive or quote-unquote advertiser friendly, showing me that most Americans really don't want to work towards a solution towards the race issue here in America. What they want you to do is stop talking about the problem. And they believe if we stop talking about the problem will just go away. Unfortunately, that's just more denial from most of America. Most of America's big problem is that they are in really big denial about the race issue here in America, and they're really in denial about how codependent they are on racism. Because when I look at that incident in Charlottesville, I can clearly see how codependent these white racists and many of these other liberal groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter are on the issue of race to become victims. And they use the position of the victim to get power. What type of power do they get from that victim's position? Well, from that power of the victim position, this is how they get their economic needs met. Because white supremacists can go out and use things like that rally in Charlottesville to get donations from their base, and groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter can use that victim position to get money for their base. So they are not about creating solutions to the race issue in America. They're about hustling American citizens and using their victim position to enrich themselves economically. Because if you really were about trying to denounce white supremacy, you wouldn't just denounce those white men who are white supremacists, like those neo-Nazis, those skinheads, and those Klansmen. You would have also been denouncing those white feminists who are out there, and those feminists out there in February and during the Day Without Women. And you would be denouncing many other white supremacists like your black pastor, who have been promoting white supremacy for years. Moreover, you would be denouncing Hollywood and Madison Avenue advertisers who promote white supremacy in their ads and their movies where they primarily feature white characters and especially white male and white female characters. So if we're serious about denouncing white supremacy, which no one really is because no one wants a solution to the race issue here in America because most Americans covertly benefit from white supremacy, a system that is not just here in America, but worldwide and is a way of thinking that has been permeated throughout the world, you would be denouncing all the aspects of white supremacy, just not the parts related to white males. And the reason why they go after that part related to white males is because they want to protect all the institutions of white supremacy, and they use the white males as a scapegoat to protect the more significant and more important parts of white supremacy, the part of the protecting the white female who teaches the culture of white supremacy to her children, the black pastor and the church which promotes the religion of white supremacy, and to protect not only on the white side but on the black side as well, and other parts of white supremacy such as the media part, which is Madison Avenue and Hollywood. They'll sacrifice the white males to do that and then keep the institution running for on and on. Meanwhile, the other side, which is the left, wants to be codependent and be the victim of quote-unquote white supremacy, when in actuality, both sides benefit from the institution of white supremacy. They'll sit there and tell you, oh, we need to denounce white supremacy, but that's not the case at all. When it comes down to most Americans, they don't want a solution to the race issue here in America because racism is a profitable business, and what they want people to do is stop talking about the problem because they don't want to acknowledge the problem, because acknowledging the problem would mean admitting that there was something wrong. And most of these codependent people don't want to admit that there's something wrong because they don't want to be responsible for the race issue in America or solving the problem of race here in America, because too many people benefit from this issue of race and profit off this issue of race. To dismantle white supremacy would mean dismantling their way of making money and making money for themselves. So if you get rid of the race issue, these guys actually have to take responsibility for themselves and solve their own problems and meet their own economic needs on both sides. Because without the race issue, the pastors, the civil rights activists, the social justice warriors, the neo-Nazis, the skinheads, the Klansmen, the feminists, they have no victim platform to stand on. And they have to go out and carry their own weight. And they can't do that because a lot of these people just don't have any technical skills or any type of skill at creating anything or being able to build anything. The only thing they know how to do is be a victim, and they use the victim position to be their position of power so they can get their economic needs met. If they are sitting there being a victim, they can go lobby Congress for a block grant, or they can get set-asides through affirmative action, or they can get their economic needs met through some sort of financial contribution from people who feel sorry for them, and they don't want to work for anything, which is the big problem with many of these people, because the solution to many of their problems is right in front of them, and all it means is for them to start taking responsibility to go out here and do what they need to do. And a lot of these people don't want to do what they need to do. They don't want to take responsibility for anything. So they'd rather try to silence anyone who wants to talk about the problem or who wants to bring the problem to a head. And that's all across the country, because I see it from every aspect and every corner, from the white supremacist who wants to complain about who's out here, and to these liberals who just want to silence the white supremacists, and to companies like Google and many others who want to silence anyone. No one wants to talk about the problem, because if you talk about the problem, then a lot of people's economic needs aren't going to be met because they live for that victim position. And most people still want to remain in that victim position because they get benefits from being a victim of white supremacy and racism. And that's why we will never have a real constructive solution or a real dialogue on race, because everyone is in denial about this race issue, and they really want to be in this denial about this race issue because they like that victim position, they like the power of that victim, and they like the control they believe that they have by being a victim. Unfortunately, victims really don't have any power, and they give their power away to others, and that allows others to control them. And when you are a victim, you cannot get your needs met. Most Americans just don't want to stop being a victim because they see so much attention that victims get. And when it comes down to that victim position, they feel like this is the place to be. Unfortunately, what they don't understand is the strongest position a person could have is the position of the survivor. The survivor is the strongest person in the room because they have the character and resolve that they have learned from their experiences to overcome everything and then move on to be the type of person who does not need people to carry them. They can carry their own weight, do their own thing, and be their own person. I'd rather be a survivor than a victim because a survivor has figured out they are the only person who can work on the solutions to their problems because they have acknowledged their problems and are taking responsibility to work towards them. I believe Americans really have to start working towards breaking free of the victim position on this race issue here in America and start working towards becoming survivors, because the survivor position is where we acknowledge the problem and then start working on our own individual and constructive solutions. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct titles, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.